off the bat, JD, tell me, for women, one big problem that everybody seems to be having is we lose a percentage of muscle mass every single decade without fail. You clearly look phenomenal. And I see you on social media talking about how you've gotten stronger and stronger with age. What's the secret formula?
So here's what has happened and doesn't have to happen. And I want to say that because I really believe that this isn't our fault, that we've literally been following the wrong set of rules. Because for years, decades, eons, women have been told to lose weight. Now, if I wanted to lose weight, the best thing I could possibly do would be to have like an IV drip of glucose and to sit on the couch, right? I'd lose a ton of muscle, a lot of glycogen, and I'd lose a bunch of weight. And then I'd create a metabolic hole for myself. And so that's the problem that women have been in, and that's why we're in the mess that we're in right now, is if you haven't been focusing correctly, and I literally had a client email me, text me this today, and I went, oh my gosh, I got to get this into my next book. She said, I was 124 2 months ago, and then I did another DEXA, and now my weight's 126. My body fat went from 20% down to 18%, and I put on, right? So you're making the happy face.
Yeah.
Now here's the reality. If she hadn't done body composition, if she'd looked at her scale weight,
she would have been upset.
She would have been upset. She would have thought she failed when the reality was it was a success.
100%.
Do you see how mission important this is, that we stop looking at weight as a measurement of success? Correct. And we solely focus. And she said, it's so exciting to look at these metrics. Look at the metrics of, am I able to do more push-ups? Is my grip strength improving? Is my total body water going up? Is my waist shrinking? Look at the things that matter, not the silly things like, did my weight go down half a pound yesterday? That's just a good poop.
Right. This is a lie that we were told for so long. Be fat-free, be scared of your actual weight on the scale. These are the fad diets that we sold through popular culture, which now we're disentangling, and we're disentangling it because we're realizing women are not like little men, which is where the research has always come from. They kind of compare the two of them. And so in your experience, what are some of the biggest myths that you have debunked in the last decade with all the research that you have access to now?
Oh my gosh, there's so many, but I will tell you that a lot of these things, fortunately, I found functional medicine 20 plus years ago. And I found all of this way, way early. And the reason I found it is I was in graduate school, and in my graduate school, everything was based on cardio. Everything. We were told that you shouldn't have anyone lift weights till they lose the weight. Now, at the same time, I was paying for graduate and doctoral school by personal training. So I was basically learning things and then applying them. No client's going to pay you to make them worse, right? And what I quickly saw is what they were teaching was making them worse. And I literally was the rebel in graduate school that when all of our research was being done on cardio, I did the research on building strength, And so mine was entirely different. And I just started looking outside of the box because I saw the box wasn't working. And in fact, I was even looking at my professors. I remember I had this one professor who said, you can get all the protein you need from a potato. And I'm looking at her and I'm like, you look like a potato. I'm like, you are what you eat. You look like a potato. Right. You are not anything like the people I saw down at Gold's Gym. And so I saw all these people at Gold's Gym, women in their 70s. I remember they were so old, here I was in my 20s, that I'd kill to have their body. And just had a Meg Ryan moment of I'll have what she's having. So a lot of the silly stuff I didn't fall prey to. I did for a while there because I lived in LA and I was training people out of the Pritikin Center in Santa Monica. I fell prey to the fat-free situation, like badly. It was 10% of your calories from fat, a high-carb diet. So that was really bad. I went vegetarian, then I went vegan, and I naturally sit at about 10% body fat. I'm a really, really lean female. It is, my genetics with hard work. Yeah. It's not just genetics. I could easily be 30% body fat. But on a vegan diet, lifting, doing cardio, all of that, I was 25% body fat.
That is insane. And they were
Crazy.
literally, you're paying to go to school. So you're paying these people to educate
teach me
you,
wrong.
teach you, and they're teaching you the incorrect thing. And you're just like, I'm having to learn on my own by paying attention to other people out there who are just a great example of what I want to look like, but they're not doing the things that you're trying to promote me doing.
Fortunately, I could see in the real world what was going on at Gold's Gym. And it wasn't that they were teaching incorrectly. They were making the wrong assumptions based on the information. Like if you understand the physiology, if you learn the biochemistry, the physiology, the assumptions they would make, I would go, well, that doesn't make sense. So I kept thinking, all right, so if your goal is weight loss, and even back then, I remember I used to not use a scale. I would bring body calipers, little skin fold calipers, and a tape measure. And that's how I used to do it until I got a bioimpedance machine. And then I used to drag this. I had a $5,000 bioimpedance machine I would drag to people's houses. In fact, when I was on the Dr. Phil show for 2 years, I brought that machine there, and I did body comp on everybody. I just wasn't allowed to talk about it because it wasn't dramatic like weight loss is. But we actually made shifts in people. It was a competition. But I had one guy who hit a plateau. He said, every time I get to this weight, I hit a plateau. And I'm looking because I'm seeing what's happening. And his cortisol was going up. His lean mass was rapidly declining, and he wasn't able to burn fat. And I'm like, okay, we're going to stop, Right. And we were able to shift it based on that we were looking at the right metrics, right? So if you start to really understand how these things work, like with weight loss, you think, well, if I really want to change my weight, I'm really looking to change my body composition. Right? I'm assuming I don't want to be a fluffier, smaller version of myself. I want to be solid like a rock. Yeah. If that's the case, I want to change my metabolism. And really, there's 3 things you can do to change your metabolism. Your resting metabolic rate, the only way you're really going to shift that is with more muscle. So you want to always be thinking about, how do I pack on as much muscle as possible? Because if you could pack on 8 pounds in a year, it would be a miracle. As we know, everyone's afraid of getting big. I'm like, it's a miracle. Like when you put on a pound of muscle, you feel like you should have like a huge party. And then, you can change the thermic effect of food. So 60% resting metabolic rate, 15% food, a little bit of a shift when you pump your protein up and bring down the carbs or fat. And then the rest is going to be activity. And the reality is, most of your activity is not exercise. And a lot of times we like to maintain homeostasis. So if we do exercise, we stop the non-exercise. One of the first things I have people do is track their non-exercise activity. They're just their steps all throughout the day. And it's like, whatever you do, let's keep those up. So as we add exercise in, we don't take it away and normalize, right?
What do you think, for anybody listening, a very achievable routine should be for somebody who is maybe, working and has a few kids and is at home? Where should they start if they want to pack on lean muscle mass and be really fit as they're getting into their 30s, 40s, and 50s?
So obviously the most important thing is going to be resistance training. However, I don't start with that. So the first thing I start with is making sure that you are going to be monitoring your body composition so that you don't become crazy, because women will be crazy. Women are crazy. We do. We have body dysmorphia. Yeah. We all do. So I'm just going to call it out. And if you're that one woman that doesn't have it, okay, good for you.
Good for you.
Good for you. So the first thing I have you do is just make a commitment. You're just going to get on a bioimpedance machine every day, same time of day, and just it reports to your phone. Every week, you track the trend. You don't check every day and get weird. Every week, you track the trend. Is my total body water, that's a proxy of my fat-free mass, going up or staying the same while my fat mass is going down? That's all, right? That's it. Okay. Then you check your activity. And we get you up to at least the floor of 8,000 steps a day. Once we've got that, then I would add in resistance training. And I just start with, I call it 2 by 2 by 2. So if someone has forgotten to work out, and it happens, right, for years. Yeah. That's actually my favorite person. It's like, I just forgot. Oops, forgot that.
Yeah, just forgot really that part can exist.
I've got into Dr. Joe Dispenza meditations and was being really good. And then I fell off a cliff. And then it's really like, you're like, oh, this is how it could be with exercise too. Like, so you've got to get these habits back in. And if you say, I'm going to do an hour meditation every single day when you have, and you start, it's not going to happen. Yeah. But if you said 10 minutes, great. So if you say, I'm going to I hit my 3 biggest body parts, which are pushing, pulling, and hip and thigh hinging. Core is included, because if you're doing all these things right, you got your core going. I'm going to hit each body part twice a week, and I'm going to do 2 exercises per body part 2 times. If that's all I started with, if you're new to this or you haven't been doing it for a while, you're going to start to see big strength gains in a month. It'll take you another month to start to see any kind of hypertrophy gains, but your muscles and nerves are communicating and great stuff happens. So this can be done at home. This could be simple as doing 2 sets of air squats, 2 sets of lunges, 2 sets of bent over rows, 2 sets of upright rows, 2 sets of push-ups, 2 sets of overhead presses. You need minimal equipment, couple dumbbells. You could even do what, I love this study I read that Dr. Rhonda Patrick circulated on VILPA, Vigorous Intermittent Lifestyle Physical Activity, where she showed that people who do 4.5 to 10 minutes total a day in 1 to 2 minute increments of vigorous activity have a 40 to 50% lower all-cause mortality than those who don't. I thought, well, what if you took all those exercises and, I'm going to do 2 sets of 2 sets of push-ups twice a week, and I'm going to do 2 sets of air squats twice a week, 2 sets of lunges twice a week, and you just did them, put them after your meal. So each time you did a meal, you did something. Think how cool that would be, and you did it.
And
right?
it's so simple and an easy way to do it without feeling overwhelmed, because that's where I think a lot of people don't even get to it because the thought of it even overwhelms them.
Yeah. Well, it's like, remember before you had a job and you needed to have a job to get a job because you had to have the job experience, but you're like, I don't have the job. It feels the same way with that. It's like people want to get in shape to go to the gym. What?
It doesn't work. It's like, no, you got to start somewhere.
And what's so funny about that is because they feel intimidated going to the gym, but the reality is, I think the gyms are some of the most encouraging, positive places that there are, right? And no one's looking at you anyway. The people who are super fit are staring at themselves or doing things for Instagram, right? They are. I mean, I'm always watching going, what are you doing?
Do you know, whenever I go to the gym, because I try to strength train at least 4 or 5 days a week because I'm little and I am South Asian, so I really struggle gaining muscle mass. And my workouts, and when I went into my 40s, really shifted to 80-90%. I try to focus on strength training, a little bit of other stuff. So when I'm at the gym, I'm looking at the super fit people, yes, they're all looking at themselves.
Yeah.
And then I'm checking out the really fit people being like, damn, they look so good.
Everyone's just looking at the fit people.
Yeah. And so I also will say there's sometimes people who are not very fit, but they're so confident. And I'm like, I have envy. I'm like,
know,
damn,
right?
girl, I wish I could wear those little hot pants and come in here.
And it's like, wait a minute, you actually would look better in the hot pants, but I wouldn't got dead in them. It is funny. So resistance training, once someone has got resistance training under their belt and they're starting to progressively overload, I really like some high intensity interval training. So here would be my perfect prescription once you've got it going on. You get that just moving more throughout the day, and it really becomes a habit. And I've done this myself, like a couple years ago when I'm just going to start tracking. And lo and behold, I found some days I was getting like 5,000 to 6,000 lame steps in a day. I went, wow. So it just is a thing now. I'm very conscious of it. And a lot of times after dinner, I'll throw a rucking vest on and we'll go walk around our little area. So I love doing that. And then adding in that resistance training, continuing to progressively overload that. There's a lot of different ways you can challenge, adding in some power moves and some jumping and things like that. Then adding in HIIT training twice a week. So it would be 3 days a week of resistance training, or maybe 4 if you wanted to split. 2 days a week of high intensity interval training. And then I think we need to do a day of
Rest and nothing.
Well, no, I don't think. I used to be like, when I was old exercise physiologist, we had all these rest days. I don't have any rest days. I do have a hot yoga day, which I detest. I do. I hate every minute of. I literally watch my watch. I go, I'm 1/6 of the way through. Like I have my whole math all the way through of how many minutes and trick myself through this whole thing. But I'm always happy when I did it. And truthfully, like the mobility work, the balance work, I will throw heavy weights around
like no
all
problem.
day long.
Yeah.
They're so fun. But standing in that like
crow pose,
yeah, jumping crow pose,
yeah.
Standing like that, you're like, oh, it's such a
especially in hot yoga, I start feeling claustrophobic at some stage. I'm like, get me the hell out of here.
Like, breathe. Yes. And I go to a yoga class where pretty much everyone in there is 25. And all they do is yoga, which I always keep going, you need to go to the gym.
Yeah.
Like
you actually
need to go to the
gain
gym.
some
You actually need to
muscle.
lift some weights. But, they're total yogi people. So it's perfect for me because I want to go into a class where people are better at whatever I'm attempting to do.
If you know me, you know I avoid seed oils like the plague. They're everywhere, even in snacks labeled as clean, organic, or healthy. But the truth is, they wreak havoc on your metabolism, your hormones, and make you super inflamed. That's why I'm obsessed with Prima, one of the few products I completely trust. Prima was created to push back against processed artificial foods and bring us back to real, nutritional, ancestral ingredients that actually nourish your body. It's packed with 100% grass-fed beef tallow, grass-fed collagen, and grass-fed whey protein, delivering bioavailable nutrients for muscle recovery, joint health, and overall vitality without any of the junk. No seed oils, no refined sugars, no artificial additives, and the best part is one of the few products that is certified seed oil safe. I always keep Prima stocked in my bag. It's my go-to post-workout, between meetings, or anytime I need an easy, high-quality protein boost. Getting in at least 1 gram of protein per pound of body weight can be really tough, but it's essential for building and maintaining muscle as you age or going through a fertility journey in your 40s and 30s like I am. And the flavor is delicious. Cacao, mocha, and salted caramel. You really can't go wrong. My favorite flavor is the salted caramel, plus the Prima bars are sweetened with organic raw honey and only contain organic whole food ingredients. So you're fueling your body with real clean nutrition. Because you're part of the Biohack-it community, you get 20% off. Just use code IMAN20 at eatprima.com. Ditch the seed oils, fuel your body right. You will feel the difference, I promise.
When it comes to high intensity, what do you recommend for high intensity specifically?
So I think in all of these things, when you look at exercise, my very first company name was called Progressive Exercise. Oh, if there were websites back then, darn it,
Yeah.
I wish I had trademarked it. I had the
I
best
know,
logo
that would
and
be
everything.
amazing.
I just didn't know. Anyhow, but I was ahead of my time. And so when you really look at it, we've got to keep changing things up because our bodies are very adaptable. And if you keep doing the same thing, you'll maintain, but ultimately we really want to be putting on muscle. Mm-hmm. And the fitter you are, the harder that is. Now, I've got tricks up my sleeve, right? But the work itself, you need to keep changing it up.
Okay.
So I'm always shifting it up. And one of the places I like to shift is with high-intensity interval training. There's a lot of different protocols, and I will revert back to like 1 minute on, 1 minute off. But the reality is the 30-second super duper hard, more Wingate style I hate like that,
Yeah.
So I've been doing that one, and I literally am doing that one because the Power Plate guys have a new bike. It's unbelievable. It's a VO2 Max trainer.
Okay.
It's called
Does it come
the
with
Rev.
a mask on it and stuff? Or?
No. But what it is the pedals vibrate.
Whoa.
And it kicks your butt. So what I've been doing now is I've been doing some 1 minute. I also have a sprint treadmill, so I'll do some there as well. And I literally mix these things up, and then I'll do on this bike where you can really only do 30 seconds of this. It sounds crazy, but it's the most difficult thing
to do. So it's worse than even those air bikes
it's so
that are
much harder.
brutal.
It's harder than all of that stuff. Now, the other thing I love to do, and I think this is a great one if someone's really short on time, and I'll do this if I'm traveling and I get somewhere, I'm like, oh, there is nothing here. Like I was just in Todos Santos, Mexico. I'm like, there's nothing here.
Yeah.
Nothing. Literally nothing. But a lot of really good vegetables. But I'll do high intensity functional training. So I might do squat jumps.
Okay.
Lunge
with a vest
jumps.
on, without a vest on?
Generally, these are without a vest. I mean, if I'm jumping, I'm not going to wear a vest.
Yeah.
It's too much pressure and stress. Yeah, but jumping, up, downs, push-ups, dips, jump lunges. So I'll do, and then if I have any kind of things like kettlebell swings and snatches and wood chops. So if I'm short on time and I want to get in resistance training some and some HIIT, that's what I like to do.
And then what do you think about the whole thing that people talk about when it comes to mind-body connection? How important is it how you're actually communicating with your body? Because sometimes we're training and we're just our thoughts are going all over the place. How important is it to send a signal to your body to really be in tune with yourself? Because I'm a very ADD, so I can have a checklist of emails I need to send after my workouts. I'm sometimes just going through the paces in the workout.
I think it more comes down to if you are really pushing it. And here's the thing. Every day is not going to be your best workout. Every day is not going to be your hardest workout. Some days you're going to go in and phone it in. But you showed up and you had discipline.
Right.
And you did the work. Some days you're going to go in and totally crush it. And both happen.
Equally count.
They're both equally count. But when you're really in there pushing it and focusing, I don't know, I guess you would call that the mind-body connection. I just look at it and go, today I'm going to go in there and see how hard I can go.
Right.
I'm going to go get some PRs. I'm going to go really push it. And some days I'm like, oh, I just want to check this off the list.
Right.
But you know what's important? the consistency. Like you look at what's important in anything in life, whether it's, eating your protein or getting your sleep, it's consistency. No one got fit going to the gym once.
Have you been able to day after day, week after week, being really consistent with hitting your protein goals, which is something most people struggle with?
I have trouble staying at my protein goal and not going over it.
Whoa.
But here's the funny part with that. I literally years ago, I had some microbiome test, and I don't remember which one it was, but it was some genetic one where they were like, oh, you're one of those people that just does better with lots of protein. And I've been that way since I was a kid.
Wow.
I've always been. So I think that's why when I went on that vegan, I was doing
Kick,
the vegan
yeah,
high
it was so
carb,
bad for
I was hypoglycemic. I was a mess. I felt horrible. So it's never been hard for me, but what I do with clients, because I keep hearing, I can't get all that protein. And then I'll go out. I love going out to eat with people because you see exactly why. And I'd done a talk about aging powerfully and what you needed to do and how you need to eat protein first and how much you need it and why. And I'm sitting at dinner and everyone's ordering. Okay, now the woman to my right, who is exactly like the person I was talking about during the talk, who forgot to work out, does some walking, but is very soft. And you can tell is probably what we call, skinny fat or sarcopenic obesity. We would be diagnosing sarcopenia like crazy if we actually were looking for it. If we actually went and you had to every year have a DEXA body scan and you could somehow also do a hand grip and if you could do just even the in-body should do a grip test too, where you could do muscle quality and you could also look at fatty infiltrate. This woman I know cannot open a jar. She wouldn't be able to open a jar, right? And she was, while she looked normal weight, she was high body fat. And so she's the one who needs to make sure she's eating protein first, which is what I just had a whole conversation about, explained all the reasons for it, et cetera. So now I'm just going to watch and see what happens. And she orders an appetizer, which was it was not like tuna tartare. It was like some bruschetta or something, right? And then she has eggplant. I'm waiting for it. And I'm like, oh no, she's having eggplant. She's going to have an eggplant, which is an olive oil sponge. Let's be honest, right? And has a glass of wine. So I'm watching all this. I have a steak, right?
Did she order a bowl of pasta next?
No, that was what she was having. Bruschetta and eggplant. So I was like, okay, well, you're going to share some of my steak with me. Oh, I'm so full. I'm like, well, just eat this before that eggplant sponge.
Yeah.
Right? Just eat this first. And then I send her. With people like that, what I do as a hack is I give them essential aminos, which I think are one of the most underutilized tools because I know you're going to get what you need, even though you didn't get it from the food, right? We're eating the protein to get the aminos. Well, I'll just circumvent the system and just give them to you. So at least we're going to get them in. And then we just start to work on how do we get you just eating your protein first? How do we have you order the shrimp or the carpaccio or there's so many appetizers that you could do that just
that are high protein,
right?
Protein first.
Yeah.
What is your take on people, women especially, with fasting? Because especially if you're trying to gain muscle mass, fasting would kind of be detrimental.
So I keep flopping on my idea. Like when you go that, what have I changed my mind on? I'm like, well, I change it. It seems like I'm changing it every 6 months. I think with any diet, you always have to look at why you're using it. And if you are using fasting for weight loss, there's not one study showing that it is better for weight loss. I think there might be one actually now that just came out than caloric restriction. So I don't think that's the reason to use it unless putting those guardrails around your eating timing helps. I think the bigger thing for me is what we call fasting to me is normal eating. So eating an hour or two after waking up, and that was something I changed my mind. Now, it used to be eat within an hour of waking up, and I'm like, no, don't do that. Give your body time to wake up. Get your pancreas time to get back online. Get your insulin ready. Let's give it a little time. So now I say an hour or two after waking up, stop eating 2 to 3 hours before bed. Exception would be when I've worked with pro athletes. I used to have them give them a little snack right before bed. So there's these things you always have to look at what are you doing this for. But for the average person, if we can just put the bumpers there where they eat about 2 hours after waking up, stop eating 3 hours before bed, people would call that fasting. That's not fasting.
Yeah.
We used to eat 3 meals and a snack growing up, and then all of a sudden it turned into 6 meals and grazing. Then all of a sudden it was back to 3, but then we had a midnight, we had the 4th meal.
Right.
It's just eat 2 to 4 meals within a normal period. And if you want to trigger some autophagy, Why would you do fasting? It seems like, maybe if someone was looking at something for cancer, for autophagy, and those are not my areas. If you're just doing time-restricted feeding and you're worried about losing muscle, if you're getting your protein in, I'm not concerned. So I don't think it's an issue.
Do you think it's okay for people to start their morning with, after the 2 hours they wake up, with a smoothie, but not made of fruit, made of vegetables instead? Would that count as a good breakfast with protein obviously in it and amino acids and collagen in it? Or would you be like, no, that's not enough?
Depends how many calories are in it.
Okay.
And how much is in it and what else they're eating during the day. Yeah.
So, yeah, because that's how I start my mornings.
I mean,
Sometimes
protein, I think fiber, protein, and fat's like the satiety trifecta. So
Yeah.
I think that one sounds great. I don't tend to eat any, I'm pretty low carb till I've worked out. Even though a lot of people feel better having some carbs and then working out, I don't. I tend to feel, and I know I've already got my glycogen stores topped off, right? So I'm topping them off after.
Because for me, I wake up in the morning and I give it a couple of hours, and then I come either before I go to the gym or when I come back, I literally have celery, avocado, sea salt, olive oil, collagen, and protein and aminos in a shake.
Nice.
Most people think it's gross. I love it. And sometimes I crack a few raw eggs in there, and that's it. That is my way of being like, I just need to get out the door. That's what I'm going to have. And this is a quick way for me to get it done.
It's like whatever you love, We all have our weird things we like.
And what do you think about people starting their morning with bone broth? Do you think that's just a fad? Do you think it really works?
Works for what?
Works for what? For getting your protein intake
It's not
for the
protein,
day.
though.
Okay.
So I love bone broth. I have bone broth shakes,
Wow.
which are a little better. They're not bone broth shakes. I mean, they're made from, basically you take the bones and boil them down and but you don't get the protein you would get if you had whey or you had pea.
Okay.
So bone broth in the morning can be fine. It's not fasting and it's not really getting protein. It's kind of not either. So if you want a hot beverage, I think it's fine. But if you're going to try to count, like collagen, don't count it as your protein.
Okay.
Because even though it's the most abundant protein in the body, it's not complete. And so you can then add in some essential amino acids with it.
You've blown my mind because I literally was like, okay, regenerative bone broth, it says on the packet, it's about, 30 grams of protein or 25 grams of protein. So I'm like, oh, that's going towards my protein total for the day.
It is, but it isn't.
Okay.
It's kind of like, how you do carbs and you go, okay, but you could pull the fiber out and have the net carbs. This is the challenge where we can get ourselves majoring in the minors and totally confused. Like people are like, should I count carbs, net carbs, fiber? I go, stop it. What we're getting down to is, are we getting what we need for our body?
Okay.
And so I think collagen is a super important thing for us to get. I love doing it before I go to the gym. This is kind of those hypotheticals. I heard a collagen researcher talking about this. He did a study. So this is I think the first study out that showed that collagen, unlike, when you eat protein, it breaks apart into its separate amino acids. But collagen, for some reason, stays and then will go into the connective tissue. And so the theory was that if you did this before you worked out, now you've got blood flow into these areas, it would help with collagen there. So I don't know. I'm hopeful, and I'm taking it that way. And I really think that, somewhere in the 10 to 20 grams of collagen a day, 10 at least, is a really, really good thing. But if you were doing collagen and bone broth as your sole protein, then we'd have a problem.
So what are, for anybody listening, quick ways to get in 100 to 120 grams of protein a day? Easiest, quickest ways for them to do it.
So the first thing you always have to make sure of is that you are not intolerant to dairy or eggs. So that's why I wrote the Virgin Diet with leaky gut. The things that people tend to start to react to the most are dairy and eggs. Doesn't mean you can't eat them forever. It just means you need to heal your gut. So assuming your gut's healed, then, protein powder, I love protein powders because they're easy and they're a great way to spike. But you could take, I have a bone broth protein powder that I spiked with essentials to make it mimic whey protein for people who are dairy intolerant. But if you could do dairy, you could take a great Greek-style yogurt, add in additional pea or whey or bone broth protein into that to get it up easily to 40 grams of protein. That's easy. An egg and egg white omelet. That's the way we do them, is we do 2 eggs and then a ton of egg whites mainly because I don't like a bunch of egg yolks, but I
Right.
want egg yolks because you're going to absorb more protein if you eat the egg yolks, and the egg yolks are choline, so it's amazing. So that's an easy one. When we make clean protein every day, and then we make leftovers. So we always make a ton of pastured chicken, wild fish, grass-fed beef. So we always have leftovers for lunch. Mm-hmm. So I mean, think about how easy that is. Literally, it is hard for me. I eat anywhere between 150 and 200 grams of protein a day. I should be eating about 140. So it's like I already checked. I went, gosh, I'm already at like 140 grams of protein today.
And even when you're traveling, how are you able to do that when you're traveling? Because at home, I guess you can meal prep and all that.
Yeah,
But
I travel all the time.
that's what I'm saying, yeah.
So, but we're staying, like, whenever we check into a place, like, breakfasts are usually pretty easy, but we also will Instacart food over or go to
Okay.
Whole Foods and put it into the fridge. So we always have stashes of things. And so we will get like chicken or salmon or something and shove it in the fridge. So that's the first thing that we do is we always have Greek-style yogurt and eggs and protein in the fridge and lots of berries. Like I love berries. So berries. But when you think about it, it's not that much. Let's say that you made a smoothie for breakfast, right? And you can easily do a smoothie at 40 grams of protein. And then you did 6 to 8 ounces of protein at lunch or dinner. You're over it. That's easy.
Right.
That's not hard. When I'm traveling, I just use those Paleo Valley little beef sticks.
Oh, those are great.
Those
They're
are
delicious.
so good. Oh my gosh.
They're delicious.
And those save you. So those, and I've had a protein bar. I'm like in a reformulation stage right now with 20 grams of protein. So I'm searching. I was happy because someone had made a new one and then I found out they had artificial sweeteners in it. I was like, how did you make a 30-gram protein bar with?
And then add sweeteners to it to spike your insulin.
Well, it's artificial sweeteners.
Oh, even.
I just am not. I know that that's a hot topic, but it just doesn't make sense to me.
If you're serious about your long-term health, there's one vitamin you're probably not getting enough of. No matter how clean your diet is, nearly 97% of people in the Western world are deficient in vitamin K2, and most don't even realize it. That's why K2 is nearly non-existent in modern diets, but it plays a huge role in heart health, circulation, bone strength, and even brain function. So here's why it matters so much. Low K2 levels can show up as weak bones, stiff muscle, bruising, wrinkles, and even forgetfulness and brain fog. It also is linked to major cardiovascular and bone health issues down the line. That's why I'm so excited about Just Thrive's K27, the only K2 supplement on the market that comes from 100% organic chickpea natto, the best source of K2. Delivers 320 mcg of pharmaceutical grade K27, the optimal daily dose. Has guaranteed potency so your body actually absorbs what it needs. It's microbiologist formulated, clinically tested, and supports your heart, bones, brain, and circulation at the source. I've made it a part of my daily routine, and I think you'll love it too. Check it out at justthrivehealth.com and use code Biohack-it for a discount and enjoy.
You have these two products that I'm really excited to try because creatine is a big hot topic right now
It
with
is.
everybody.
I'm so happy it's a hot topic. I feel like, where the heck was I? Seriously.
So you told me a little bit about how you came up with this creatine in particular. So can you talk about this formulation and also why should women, as early as their 20s, start taking creatine?
Teens.
Yeah, teens.
So,
okay.
and I'm just, the bummer is like, I was around all these people taking creatine at Gold's Gym in Venice. Why wasn't I paying attention? But I thought it was for the bros.
Yeah.
They were big bros. I was like, I'll have none of that. And
Yeah.
back then they did all the loading and they were like, so I was like, no, I'm staying away from that. And then a couple years ago, I think I came across this. I'm trying to remember what happened where I was like, oh, I must try this. So I started reading the research on this, and what was interesting to me is that women, because we have less muscle mass than men, we have less creatine stores than men, right? Because creatine stores in your muscles, in your gonads, we don't have those, and brain. And so 95% muscles, 5% brain. And so we have less muscles, we have less creatine stores. Then you start to look at what does creatine do? Well, creatine helps your body create ATP and recycle ATP, make energy. So it helps you. It doesn't make muscle. Like you don't take creatine, sit on the couch and get bigger muscles.
Right, of
This
course.
is not what it does. It helps you build muscle because it helps you work out harder and recover better. In that way, it may also help with bone mineral density. So they still need to find that out, but it's not it itself building bone or building muscle. It is allowing you to work harder so that you can. But the really cool thing it also does is it goes to your brain and it's very energizing. So they've studied it for sleep deprivation. I can tell you for jet lag, it's the greatest thing ever. Like I finally found my jet lag solution. It's so exciting. That's why when you said Saudi Arabia, I'm like,
Yes.
like 2 years ago, I would have been no way. Now I'm like, no problem. Like
I'll be there. I'll be
easily
awake.
shift.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I can just, no problem. So jet lag, sleep deprivation, they're studying it now for dementia, TBI. So it's really exciting stuff. Skin, I'm actually working on a skin formulation.
I'm really excited about
Very
that.
exciting. I'm testing it right now. So you look at it and you go, oh, every woman should take it. But here's the problem. And this is what happened. So I got really excited about it. And I did a creatine monohydrate powder because as I was reading the research, all the research is on creatine monohydrate.
Correct.
And everything out there says, don't use anything else. It's all hype. It's just expensive, blah, blah, blah. This is what all the research is on. I'm like, okay. Now, creatine monohydrate is a carrier, just like you have magnesium glycinate, it's what you're going to do to carry it to help get in the cells. So I do a lecture a couple years ago at a medical conference, talk about all the benefits of creatine, why women need to be on creatine, how we can use it. To me, the ultimate sarcopenia formula, like helping women with aging, would be creatine, essential aminos, and then the sphortotropin, which I have to tell you about, and probably urolithin A, and Sinolix. But creatine monohydrate, as I'm telling all these people to take it, I'm getting the worst blowback I've ever gotten recommending a product. And I've been in the supplement world for 30 plus years, long time. So I've heard everything. That made my hair fall out. That made me, not about this, but I mean, just crazy stuff, right? This one, I get over and over. I'm gaining weight. I'm having gas. I'm feeling bloated. I'm like, just stick with it. It'll go away.
Right.
No. Women nowhere, if they go up a couple pounds, are sticking with anything, right? So I run across this guy after I do this lecture, and he said, I am a creatine manufacturer. I manufacture the only creatine in the USA, and it's a better creatine that doesn't cause bloating. And I'm like, skeptical but curious. I said, listen, I like to be critically open-minded because I know creatine monohydrate's the only one, blah, 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 all that party line. I go to his lab in Nebraska. He's done all of the research and testing. He has the only creatine in the USA, but what's cool is creatine monohydrate, it turns out the way they did the assays, they took a tiny amount and then extrapolated how much would get absorbed, which is not how you can do absorption solubility studies. So only about 15% of creatine gets absorbed, which is why they tell people to take 5 grams or more when you only actually need supplementally about 1 gram a day, maybe 750. And when you do the math equation, I was like, oh, well, it's just obvious with the math. You don't need that much. You have to take that much because it's not getting absorbed. What's it doing if it's not getting absorbed? Well, what else it does is causes gas and bloating and all this stuff, right? That you will adjust to, but why do it? So when he told me about this, I'm like, oh my gosh. So I tested on myself, and then I was like, that's it. So then I thought, well, what could make creatine better? Because if you're trying to really help with ATP production and recycling, what else works? And it turns out that when you put creatine and magnesium together, both work like exponentially better together than either would do on their own. Same with creatine and taurine. I wish there was some study, because there's studies on both of those combos, but there's not a study on the 3 of them. But I'm like, it's got to be amazing, because think about what they all do. And so that's what I put together. Creatine, HCl, which is this better creatine that you only need 1/7 of the dose, and then magnesium and taurine.
I'm shaking my head because I've been feeling like I take creatine, and I've been taking the one everybody says to take, and I've been feeling bloated. And I feel like I have a little
76% of people do.
pouch on my stomach, and I'm like, I'm a very petite woman. And on top of that, I'm feeling like bloated on my arms. And I used to have the tiniest arms possible. And I'm like, what is going on here? And so that kind of makes sense. So I've been feeling inflamed, and I'm like, is this the inflammation? And I'm not. I was like, maybe it's because I've upped my protein intake. Maybe it's because I'm, really pushing myself at the gym, and I'm not seeing the definition in my arms. So I'm like, what is it? Well,
are you tracking your bioimpedance or DEXA, or how are you tracking your body comp?
In body,
women
which
are crazy.
Is not the it's I do in body because that's what's available at my gym. It's probably not the best thing because they can fluctuate a little bit, but I have gained muscle mass, but I'm also feeling inflamed at the same time. So I'm like, what am I doing that's not making sense? And I was like, it might be something I'm taking as a supplement that isn't agreeing with me.
I would give you a little washout.
Okay.
Like a week, 2 weeks washout, and then I'd start with just the basic dose. And that's the interesting thing. So 5 grams of creatine monohydrate equals 750 milligrams of creatine HCl. So when people say that absorption, you're like, no, the math doesn't work.
add up.
Because you don't need that much. If you needed that much, you'd only have to take 1 gram of creatine monohydrate. So therefore, whatever you're saying, it's like it just doesn't work.
So I'm going to do that. So I'm going to take it out for a bit, give it 2 weeks, and get myself back on yours, and then build myself back up.
And then
there.
I love to do, so I'm really careful with everything I do. I always do one thing at a time so I can go, what is happening here?
Yeah.
The other thing to always think about if you go, what else is going on? If you are training really hard, one of the cool things to find out is, if you're overtraining, there's 2 ways. You can either monitor HRV, but grip strength. If you see your grip strength go down, and you can just do that with a simple hand grip dynamometer. If it goes down 10%, cool it.
Yeah.
Take a little break.
When it comes to, I know you are a fan of microdosing GLPs, and I've seen you talk about it. Can you talk us through how that can affect the way you're maybe doing it, can affect, if not done correctly, muscle mass? Because if somebody's trying to gain muscle mass, but then they take the GLP-1s, what is your formulation to take it?
Okay, so I must give a shout out to my friend, Dr. Tina Moore, who's amazing and fantastic and so smart with all of this. One of the interesting things with GLP-1s, so I started playing around with this because I put my son on first I started with tirzepatide, then I moved him to semaglutide because of a traumatic brain injury. And I always like to, if I can do something he's doing, I always do it because I want to see what it is, right? But I have him on a low dose. It wouldn't be microdosing per se, but it actually is. He's on a tirzepatide, he's on a pretty microdose. But
and what's a microdose mean? How small are we talking?
So for tirzepatide, the starting dose is 2.5, and so it would be 1.
Okay, one time a week.
1 time a week or every other week.
Okay.
So pretty low. I don't know what his dosing on his semaglutide is, but it's the same type of thing. So that's what I played around with. I was like, okay, well, I'm going to give this one a shot too and try it. I was interested in this because I have severe osteoarthritis, because I broke my foot teaching aerobics in Japan. Okay. A dumb thing. And it's like one of those things where they go, we can fuse your foot. I'm like, we're not fusing my foot. So then I can't do yoga, which in a way would be a blessing, but and I was also looking at, osteoarthritis, it's also good for autoimmune stuff. So I'm like, all right, I'm going to play around with this. I did it wrong to start. I hit the 2.5. The starting dose is like a low dose.
Yeah.
Did that for a month, did not feel really well. And actually, what was interesting is I dropped some fat. I dropped 4 pounds. And my muscle mass stayed the same. And it might have even gone up a little bit. And as I started to dig into the research, because I go, what is going on with this muscle mass loss? Well, if you look in the research, what the research shows with myostatin and GLP-1s is that it may, in fact, block lower myostatin. Oh. And so what I saw to be true was, and this is why I started to dig into this, I went, wait a minute, I'm actually able to hold on to or build muscle and drop a little bit of body fat. And this doesn't make sense to me. And I was doing it more just to kind of test to see what was happening with my son and see if I could get some inflammation down, et cetera, which was like, boom, inflammation down, crazy. But I was able to put on muscle with it. And I think that the only issue with this and muscle mass, I actually think the opposite's true. I think that actually these things could help you build muscle. The problem is, especially because when you think about it, inflammation blocks muscle protein synthesis, right? Mm-hmm. And we've got fatty infiltrate, we've got insulin resistance, you've already got a GLP-1 deficiency going on. So this could actually help you build muscle, but not if you don't have the protein. When you look at what you need to build muscle, especially 30 plus, because we've got anabolic resistance, we've got to have the protein stimulus and the resistance training stimulus. Any caloric restriction diet that does not have the protein and resistance training is going to cause muscle mass loss. Any diet, all diets, all of them will. So to blame it on the GLP-1 is ridiculous. In fact, I would contend that if you put a regular diet against a diet facilitated by GLP-1 with the same protein and resistance training, you'd probably get a better outcome with the GLP-1 because you'd have better lowering of myostatin, you'd have better insulin sensitivity, so you'd have all the things you'd need that would help improve your muscle protein synthesis.
But because so many people do not prioritize, especially women, do not prioritize their protein intake, would you recommend fix your diet first, get into that habit of eating your protein first, drill that in, and then from there, if you need, get on a GLP-1.
I don't think anyone should ever try to lose weight again.
Okay.
I don't think we should ever use a scale again. I think scale should be abolished. I think the fact that in 2025 you go to a doctor's office and stand on a regular scale is ridiculous
Right.
and horrible. I think that everything should be based on body composition. We should be making prescriptions based on body composition and only that. And if anything, we should focus on prioritizing and optimizing muscle mass before we ever focus on fat loss. The research is really clear that people who have more muscle, even if they have higher body fat, are way better off than people who are skinny minis without the muscle. And we aren't even looking, because we just look at BMI. It's just stupid. You got to look at body composition, you got to look at muscle quality, and the easiest way to do that would be a hand grip dynamometer, do something functional. Then we start first with, is our muscle where we need it to be? Let's start focusing on that, because if we focused first on building muscle,
Correct.
prioritizing protein, lifting weights, doing hypertrophy training specifically, you would start to lose some fat because muscle's metabolic spanks. But then you could start the caloric restriction once you see that process is going, right? And then you can hold on to or build muscle, and you will not trash your metabolism like you saw with the Biggest Losers.
I'm going to ask you now the $1 million question that every woman wants to know. JJ, what do you do for cellulite? How do we as women get rid of that annoying, pesky cellulite that just happens with age? Obviously, it varies in genes and obviously how much muscle mass you have on you, but what do you do?
I don't have cellulite.
I know.
I know. I just don't. But I will tell you, I
know,
have this.
JJ. I've seen your legs. Okay, that's why I'm like, I want to know the answer.
If I do a down dog, I'll never forget the day I was in bike shorts at the gym, and with a guy on either side of me, private training them, and I let's put him in a down dog and looked at my crepey skin and went, "What the hell just happened? How did my mom put her legs on my legs?"
Yeah.
So we all have our things.
Yeah.
That's not my thing. So it just doesn't mean like I'm perfect. I got a lot of other stuff. Okay.
Yeah.
So, but that's not the thing. Here's the issue with cellulite. Number one, the more you can strengthen up your muscles, the better off you're going to be. The more you can do good lymphatic flow, the better off you're going to be. Like all the stuff that makes you better is going to make cellulite better too. But there's just some part of being screwed that we have to be honest with. Like you can do, I had to do some YouTube video on cellulite, and I go, the bottom line is all the things we know we should be doing: do more resistance training, lower your body fat, do some lymphatic drainage,
cut out sugar,
like eat protein, lower carb, all those things help a ton. And then, have good genes, because there's that just skin texture that lighter, whiter people tend to be screwed with, and it's just the thinner skin, and then our skin thins with aging. That doesn't help. Now, caffeine creams, temporarily, having a tan looks better, and I'm just hopeful. And I don't know if Timeline's MitoPure, their cream, their lotion would work. I've been using it on my arms because it's mitophagy.
Yeah.
It's like, so that might do something. Like if I was going to do anything, I'd probably take that and some caffeine and some creatine. Now, creatine's hard as a cream. I've been playing around with it to get the serum that will really help. But I have a sense that might be one too. And maybe it would be a creatine caffeine. Maybe I've just
combo. Maybe that's the next product.
The thing. Maybe it's a creatine caffeine cellulite serum.
Because I literally remember seeing you at Eudaimonia in November, and I saw your incredible legs. I'm like, this woman does not have an ounce of cellulite. I was like, I have to ask JJ what she's doing. So you're blessed with good genes, but now you're going to go create us a product to solve some of our issues.
The only time I remember having cellulite was during that brief time, the brief vegan
era of your life.
The vegan era, before the doctor told me I had to eat a chicken or go to the hospital. And by the way, I used to work out like 6 hours a day back then, like crazy amounts of teaching aerobics and lifting weights. And I mean, it was like crazy. And I remember having cellulite. Like that was, but my body fat was way higher. So,
I literally walk into the gym every day and I tell my trainer, I was like, let's just build my legs as much as possible, because the more muscle I have, the less it'll pop through, the stronger it'll be. It'll just hold all my skin together.
And here's the thing. You know what? Everybody's got something.
Yes.
And I think we've strengthened. I had a great mentor early on in life. She's like, strengthen your strengths. Don't strengthen your weaknesses. I've never had a waist. I don't have a tiny waist. I can literally take my pants. I can wear things and I'm completely straight. Like if they fit on my hips, they fit on my waist. And so that used to drive me nuts because girls wear those cute things. And like if I wore something like that, I'd look like a tank. I go, why don't I just emphasize the things that work really well, and most of the things that won't work, I just won't wear them. That's a simple solution. So it's like you just strengthen your strengths.
I love that feedback. JJ, thank you for being on the show. I just think there's so much that I definitely wanted to ask you so many questions, and I know my audience can learn so much from you. So is this product on the market now? Can people just go purchase it? Okay.
It is. We'll give you a special code so you can give everyone a discount.
I definitely want to do that. So where can people find you on social, or how should they locate you?
So jjvirgin.com, and then that's got my Well Beyond 40 podcast and all the social channels. I do a lot on YouTube and Instagram. And then our website with all the recipes, and then the store and all the all.
And if people want to hear this podcast and they're like, we want to coach with you and apply to become a client of yours, how do they do that?
So I very rarely take on clients. And somewhere on my website, see how I don't even know because it's like jump through 12 hoops. Yeah. Somewhere on my website, there's a thing where you can say you really, really want to do that, and somewhere
to go and look and find it somewhere. And this you can also find on Wellness by JJ. Find it on your website.
Yeah,
purchase
Reignite
it right away.
Wellness is its own site too. So all of that is there, and I try to do a lot of that. We have a Facebook group that I go in live and do a lot of that there, because what I found early on, I used to work all one-on-one, and then I started to do one to group. And then I started to have coaches help me. And then I started to have everybody help each other. And what I discovered, arrogantly, I thought at first, they'll never get the results if they don't work one-on-one with me. What I discovered is the people who got the best results were in a community.
Correct.
Supporting each other. So
Learning
that's
from each
what I
other.
really focus. And then I'll jump in there and answer as many questions as possible. And that seems to be the best for everybody.
Well, I'm really excited to try this and not be bloated when I take creatine anymore.
Yes.
So thank you for this gift. And thank you for being on the podcast and joining the show and really educating my community.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for tuning in to Biohack-it. If you've enjoyed today's episode, please don't forget to subscribe, rate, and leave a short review. It really helps us reach more listeners just like you. Follow us on Instagram at biohack-it for exclusive content and the latest updates. Remember, your health is in your hand and curiosity heals.